Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. So today, it's time to cover some news, because really, some cool stuff has happened, some maybe controversial or funny stuff has happened in terms of botting, a new mount and things like that, but there's certainly good stuff to talk about. I did say I'd have a few discussion videos, including some stuff about garrisons. I'm putting them back 1 or 2 days just because I've got to go to a Viva today. Yes, Vivas are fun for any of you who have been through university team projects. But anyway, let's get on with the news. And the first topic, I've got to say, is absolutely glorious. Blizzard unleashed an absolute Ragnarok of Reckoning upon the botters. They destroyed them, it was lovely, and very good. Essentially, there's been a long-running problem, and I don't know how prevalent this was during Mists of Pandaria because I didn't do that many battlegrounds, but loads of people have been saying that they go into a BG. I remember specifically Asmongold's video about this, and it actually got out to a few like traditional games media websites, but the botting situation is mad. Or maybe it was Zyback or whatever he's called, his video. But anyway, there was a big problem where you'd go into a BG and you would find like half the other players are all following paths based on Honor Buddy. Usually Honor Buddy, it's some sort of botting software. I've never used it myself. The only other botting software that I was aware of by name was Glider, but I'm assuming that's something Blizzard dealt with many years ago. But essentially what this was doing for many people is it was absolutely just cocking up the experience of running a battleground, because if you want to go and run a Warsong Gulch, then what matters about your fun there is A, of course winning, but also playing the objective, you know, doing your capture the flag, and with all these botters running around, it just means that, well, you can't have fun. And what's worse is that because Blizzard, and I think completely rightly, wants to prevent people from leaving matches early and things like that, if you are stuck in a match with bots and you leave, then you get a deserter debuff, which really, just for some people, if you're only going to be playing for maybe 40 minutes, it kind of ruins your evening. That botting situation. So it is fantastic that that has been done. Now, I don't know the exact size and scope of the botting ban, but it does seem to be very large, and, well, the Honor Buddy forums are absolutely hilarious, and what's even more funny is people trying to appeal their ban, saying, please let me play my characters. Look, you broke the rules. That's what happens. You negatively impacted the gameplay experience of other people. You're a selfish asshole. Guess what? Enjoy the fact that you're banned, and have fun making a second account, giving Blizz a bit more money, and leveling your characters up again. So, it's a bit funny how all that happened. I suppose with botting, it's a bit interesting. I get the impression that usually it is the sort of younger players who are caught up in all of that stuff, and I'll say from personal experience, friends of mine back in RuneScape bought it all the time, and once I installed a bot, used it for 15 minutes, decided I didn't want to get my account, wrecked, and I uninstalled it back in RuneScape, and I didn't get my account wrecked, but you know what, my friends did, and that was a valuable lesson. So everyone, don't bot, and it's kind of funny what's went on. The reason, by the way, that Blizzard generally is a bit more passive when it comes to communicating bot waves and things like that, or just why they do them in waves, is I think they feel like if they communicate too much about the issue, what happens is the botters get a bit more savvy to when Blizzard are going to take action, so it's a bit of a strange sort of way of doing things, but I think overall it probably does make sense, though certainly they should be publicizing the fact that if you bot, you probably will be caught, and if you're caught, you lose your account. From what I've heard, a lot of these bans are for 6 months. I can understand Blizzard maybe being lenient if this is the first major wave they've done in a long time, but I would say that subsequent waves should be a permanent ban because, well, there's no way that someone is going to bot and then not know what's going on. Now, there is, of course, the chance of false positives happening. If that happens, then contact Blizzard support and see what they can do for you, I suppose. And there may be the odd false flag to do with maybe keyboard software, things like that. But in general, if you want to stay on the right side of the rules, essentially have it so that 1 key press on your keyboard equals 1 key press in-game. Now, if that in-game key press is a macro that does 10 other things, that's fine. Basically, you can't use third-party software to do anything that the in-game macro system can't. If you follow those rules, you will be just fine and dandy. Next, let's move on to the new mount. This is the Mystic Rune Saber, and I've got to say, It's a beautiful mount. I really do love it. And you know what? I think it would have been really fun to earn it in-game. And it would seem that a lot of other people like that, or, you know, think that way, because the like-to-dislike ratio on this video currently is 734 likes, which, okay, maybe I can understand. It is a great bit of art, but more importantly, 2,400 dislikes. The top comments, including some from some colleagues of mine on the YouTube sphere, are basically saying, listen, Blizzard, you just lost 3 million subscribers, and then you release a paid mount? It boggles the mind. This shows, I think, a bit of a disconnect with the players. I know that they've done things before. For an example, there was some paid functionality or whatever that came out with, or yeah, it was the selfie camera stuff even, that came out, like its trailer with patch 6.1. A lot of people were salty about 6.1, myself included. I think it really didn't live up to scratch, and the video for that and the sort of community feedback was pretty indicative of what people thought. And then you move on a few months and you find out, yeah, a lot of people left the game. Right as we find out that they've left the game, Blizzard announced, oh, we're selling a new mount, and guess what? At that earnings call, Mike Morhaime said that while subscriber numbers have decreased, revenue has revenue relative to the amount of subscribers has increased, meaning that it's been roughly stable, even though they've lost players. And why? Well, because the expansions went up in price, they're making money via character services, and they're providing more paid offerings, like the Mystic Runesaber. And the sad fact is, it does work. This does make them a lot of money, but personally, I think it's in a very destructive manner. You know, if this Runesaber could have maybe had, let's just say 10 days worth of gameplay involved in getting it, then for a lot of people that would mean they'd stay subbed for an extra month. And I think that would overall be good for the health of the game, and really that's I think the long-term really important thing. These mounts are licensed to print cash, absolutely. But I think that if you try to invoke that license every 2 months, or just, way too much, people grow sour to it, and I think we really are seeing that. I mean, this video is, I think it's over a 75% dislike ratio. I think that is indicative. You know, like, top comment here from Nixium, a really talented machinima, who said, machinima creator, who said, I think the dislike bar can show you, Blizzard, where you actually should be putting your time and money, and it ain't on store mounts, that's for sure. I've got to say, I agree with the guy. Like, absolutely. They need to be putting more stuff in the game. They need to be showing people that that's what they're focusing on. And, yeah, it's, you know what, it's probably just bad timing. I know Bashiok a while ago said the reason why this mount was delayed from 6.1 was due to them wanting to get the WoW token stuff out, but I've got to say, if this came out in patch 6.1 in combination with the selfie camera and not a great deal of content, ooh, I think people would have went a little bit ballistic. Maybe more ballistic than they went with this. Still, it's... I don't think this is the worst thing ever in itself, but it just is indicative of a larger problem. That's a bit sucky. Hopefully it gets better in the future, I suppose. We'll have to see. Let's quickly meander on over to another bit of news, and that is the raid testing schedule for the PTR. Now, the important thing here is not the actual bosses themselves, though they do look pretty cool, but it's more that they are on to testing mythic bosses. Now, they've been testing heroics, they've been testing mythics, they've also been testing the LFR a little bit. In terms of the actual boss testing for patch 5.2, they really do seem to have started pretty quickly, and they're definitely getting quite a way through the testing schedule. And overall, this speed would indicate to me that, yeah, there is a pretty good chance that this patch will be coming out. I'd say sometime in June. I don't think it'll come out in May, that would be too quick. But sometime in June, I'd say, is when this will come out, perhaps early July at the latest. In terms of the actual content that's on the PTR client, it seems like pretty much the entire shipyard system is currently in. I will have a video on that once I unlock a little bit more stuff on my characters. I didn't get to unlock things as quick as I wanted to because of university work, but again, as I said, that's clearing up. So there's that. Inside Tanan Jungle, it seems like the whole Garrison campaign is in, or at least most of the important stuff. Obviously the Legendary Quest stuff exists, they'll probably push that in once it actually hits live, because maybe they don't want to spoil the story and things like that, which totally makes sense. And in Tanan, you've got the Apexis missions. I think at this stage, all of the rares and treasures are implemented, so it would seem like they just have to do a few tweaks. Now, there are some good tweaks coming. Apparently, they're going to be putting in specific mechanics for the Mythic Dungeons, which is really nice to see. I've seen some data mined Time Walker gear, which is 660, and some tweets from Wowhead's Perculia, who said that apparently there are going to be recolors, so watch this space, and if this new PTR update does bring some nice time-walking improvements, then I'll be sure to bring them to you. Still, it would seem like this patch is beginning to come together, so perhaps we're looking at a June release date. Hopefully anyway, because I think the game does need a bit of life breathed into it right now. And finally, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the Legendary Ring, because Watcher, who is Ian Hazakostas, posted a decent-sized post over on the forums, which was meant to allay some concerns. Now, the main concerns were about just its use in raids and things like that, and essentially he said it's not, in their opinion, a ginormous problem, but that they do sympathize on some of the points the players have brought up. I think that's fair enough, and I think the most important point is that players don't really have control over their legendary within a raiding context. He said, like, his quote is, "That's a fair point, and I sympathize." Well, I'd say that when it comes to a legendary ring that is earned by you, and when everyone gets one of those rings, it does dilute it a bit when it's got an effect that is based off the other rings. If you're not aware, if everyone has a DPS ring and one DPSer uses their ring, it activates everyone else's ring, and that just takes control away. I think that this system could have worked really well, though, if it was a more traditional legendary item, because if you think about something like, say, Shadowmourne or whatever, it was great getting that because, yeah, okay, the person involved got a really special thing in the game, but also it helped out the raid quite a bit. If you had one of those super rare legendaries that then gave everyone a buff, I think that would have been really cool. And because it would have been a particularly, like, super rare legendary, it would not have affected the overall balance of the raid. And I'm a bit worried that the balance will be sort of off because of this ring. Now, about balance, Ian did say that nothing in Hellfire Citadel has been tuned around the ring, and that's why it's not available on the PTR. He said that in Siege of Orgrimmar, many players had their cloaks before they first actually got into Siege of Orgrimmar, which sort of diluted the impact of completing the cloak, because, well, you didn't really have a comparison of Siege before and after the cloak, and I think that's true. But moving into Hellfire, I think if you get your ring halfway through, I would worry that it would perhaps trivialize some of the boss fights, or maybe just lead to some issues. Like, what if a boss fight has got a particular mechanic which calls for maybe an extra raid cooldown from the healers? Well, if you have the ring, then you just flat out have another cooldown. You have a bigger toolkit. It's not even about the specific power of your toolkit, it's the fact that it basically might as well give you a brand new thing. I think that might be a bit off in terms of the balancing, and I really hope that they're taking it into consideration, which obviously they are, but I more mean I hope they hit the mark. So on the Legendary, I'm not the biggest fan of it from a rating perspective, though what I do really like about it is that it gives you an extra button to use. I love how it's an on-use cooldown, and I think that when you're actually out in the world, it will give you another button to play with, another thing to synergize with your cooldowns, and that's a really, really good perspective. I just wish that within a raiding context, individuals had a bit more control. And it could have worked if it was just your own little proc, because your raid leader could still call for everyone to use their ring at a certain point, yes, but also, you know, if there was a boss where that wasn't the case, or maybe if you were in a specific class where you wanted to time it with some sort of class mechanic, well, then you would have had the freedom to do that. So, while I really think it's a cool idea, everyone's rings going off at the same time and it being kind of like a, I don't know, some sort of weird Power Rangers, everyone combines their power situation, I think a bit more personal choice would have been nice in regards to its usage. Anyway, that is it for the news as of the last few days. Be sure to stay tuned to the channel. I'll have lots of stuff coming up in the future now that, well, after today, my University Viva is done. I've got maybe an exam or two in a week, but after that, it will be full bore with YouTube, which I cannot wait to get into. Anyway, that's it for me. Thank you very much for watching the video, and I will see you next time.